This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome back to another episode of Top Shelf. As always, I am here. My name is Mike, and with me always is
Greg.
What's up, Greg?
Not much, Mike. How you doing, buddy?
I'm exhausted. Between the Stanley Cup Finals, this whole playoff, of course, we've both had crazy work weeks, insane crazy work weeks.
And it's 216 degrees outside.
Yes, and it's just 2 degrees short of hell outside here.
But we get to
Florida.
talk about hockey.
But, yes, that's how I stay cool. I look forward to doing this
there's
every
other
other
things
week.
you do to help you stay cool.
Yeah, there's beverages involved. But, But seriously, these, we've talked about it before. The NHL playoffs this year have been insane, just insane. And here we are now in the finals, and it's almost, I hate saying this, but it's almost been like fatigue. Like, I should be all in on these playoffs, and I'm trying to be, but there's some nights where I find myself like trying to prop one eye open to stay up to watch this. And
it's also harder to go that length when you're not hardcore invested in one team or the other. You're anti-Boston, so I know you're pulling for St. Louis, but it's not like if St. Louis wins, you're going to have a party.
But you know what it is?
Cool.
It's more than that. Yeah, I mean, I can't, and we'll get into that. I can't stand Marchand or Chara and all. They are what they are. And I will say this, but before I go into that, Brad Marchand is phenomenal at what he does, and that's why people hate him.
Oh, he's a hardcore shit talker.
He's just like back in the day when we had Konstantinov, the entire league hated him, but they were scared to death of him. But he was ours, and that's why we loved him. Chelios was another one. Every Detroit fan out there hated Chris Chelios until the day and the announcement was made that he was a Red Wing, and then he was one of your favorites. Marchand is no different.
Everybody says they can't stand him, but if he was on your team and got you a cup, you'd put up with his crowd.
And I'll tell you that, I was listening to Doc and Jock today, which I do every Thursday, and Adam just loves Marchand, and I'm listening to him, as I do in the car every Thursday, and I'm like, God damn it, no, just stop. I hate him.
But that makes sense because Adam's the type of guy that'll go out in public and lick somebody's face, right?
That is completely, yeah. And Adam, if you disagree with that, just let me know. But I've got a feeling that is you. Yeah, these finals, this series 2-2, I pretty much compare it to a heavyweight fight. I mean, Boston comes out with a haymaker and just knocks St. Louis senseless. St. Louis comes back the next game and just, they just fight out a win. And here we are 2-2, and this series has been as advertised. Everyone really, I think, if you disagree, but everyone pretty much expected Boston to roll through St. Louis. Understandably
Boston
so.
Should be, at worst, in my opinion, Boston should be up 3-1.
I think anybody would agree with you.
And if certain circumstances hadn't happened, which is a part of sports, there's they could be done. It could be over by now. That losing Chara in Game 4 hurt them a lot. And you talk about something that looked painful. That puck to the face off his stick, boy, that was a wicked pissa, wasn't it?
I don't care who it is or how many times this kind of play happens, which does happen, unfortunately, but it doesn't happen as much as you'd expect. Yeah. But when it does and you see it, you feel it. You just look away and I can't even... I mean, I've played in beer leagues and stuff, and it's fun. And anybody that does that, you take one off the leg or the side or anything like that, and it hurts.
Oh, it's brutal.
And you have a purple mark to remind you of that for about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
It's like getting shot with a beanbag gun, right?
But these are pros, and when these guys are doing it, it's magnified 100 times, and I can't imagine the pain that goes through that. And only in hockey does a guy have a broken jaw, and he's questionable, or no, he's game time decision. Any other sport,
that hurt them quite a bit to me in game 4. I feel like if Char had been on the ice, they probably, you never know,
right?
But losing your captain and honestly, one of the better defensemen in the league in a situation like this, it hurts.
Right.
Plus, being down I can never say his name right. Grelsick. He's with the concussion. But St. Louis, I got to be honest with you, man. Bennington is just, my God, he's on fire.
Except for the one game.
Well, you know what? Everybody has a bad day.
Right.
They do.
In fact, Sean was calling him Bummington today, which I thought was pretty funny.
The other night.
Which I thought was funny.
But I'm going to tell you what, man. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Tonight's in Boston. That's a big deal. It's essentially a 3-game series now.
Yep.
How physical will Chara be? How active will Chara be?
He did practice. He did skate with a full cage, which does not surprise me in any way whatsoever when it comes to the NHL.
You get Grzelcyk back. Does it make a difference? I mean, Boston, if you want to take the last month of the season to now, has literally been one of the hottest teams in the NHL. What can they do? But St. Louis just seems to find a way to keep pulling it out.
And if we go by the pattern of this series, I mean, Boston's looking pretty good. It should swing back their way, but like you just said, it depends on which St. Louis team shows up.
It's been super fun to watch.
So it'll be super exciting. I'm going to keep an eye on it. Tonight I'm going actually to a big NXT event here in Largo, Florida for not the WWE, because let's face it, the WWE Raw is trash, but there's another podcast for that. So I'll be keeping an eye on the game, obviously, until I get home, then can hopefully catch some of the third period. But yeah, it's been great. It's been entertaining, and I'm just hoping that, honestly, right now, selfishly, I hope it goes 7 games, because there's nothing better than Game 7 in the NHL Finals.
I really don't see how it doesn't. If you want to get right down to it, I really don't, unless something incredible happens and we get a couple of 7-2 games.
Right.
They've been so tight.
Yeah, so it's been great. So let's get back into basically my off-season counseling to get me through this long off-season.
Hey, Mike, how many days do we have left to the start of the NHL season?
I knew you were going to say that. And I'm not counting, but it's 119.
Oh, okay. Well, give or take.
Yeah,
119.
Give or take. And also, I want to give a big thank you to everyone that participated in our poll results on Twitter. I was actually surprised. We had over 80 people respond to it. And this time of year, I'm always the first one to say I'm one of the big hockey Red Wing nerds that pays attention all year. But I was surprised. There was a lot of people. Thank everybody that did that. And the question I put up is, who are you expecting to have a breakout season this coming season? And Mantha was overwhelmingly at 50%. Bertuzzi was at 15%, and Zadina was at 26%. And I put in other just in case someone else came to mind for fans, and that was only 9%, which wasn't surprising. But Mantha is got to be it. Based on the world performance he had, he was on fire for that whole tournament, and it's
he should have had a breakout season last season, but injuries, injuries, prohibited that.
When you keep in
exactly.
Adam made this great point a few weeks ago. Stop fighting and stop breaking your hands, so you stop missing games.
Perfect.
And I hope, as a young player, he's learned that, and he will curtail that this coming season and put together a big 2019, because Lord knows they need it. So we've got the draft coming up, which, we're not going to rehash it too much. It's June 21st. We know there's basically 2 givens. Hughes is going first, Kakko's going number 2, and then from there, we'll see. But you did some research on it.
I did a little bit of research on it, and we both have talked about this a lot, and we feel that the Wings' weakest link is their back end, their defense and their goalie. It really needs to be overhauled. It really needs some help.
I cannot tell you how many times last season that I wanted to put my fist through the TV when they would give up a goal in the last minute of a period or the last minute of a game, to give up a tie, to either give up a game winner or a tying goal. It was ridiculous. And yes, the defense is a huge weakness on this team.
So to lead into what I'm talking about, one of the things that they did was they signed Oliver Koski.
Yes.
Last week.
Gold medalist from Finland, who's a defenseman, which immediately makes their back end significantly better. I can't disagree with that.
Let's hope.
Yes.
So we know that Hughes, like you said, is going to go first to the Devils.
Yep.
Or Kakko is going to go first and to the Rangers or to the Devils, and then the Rangers are going to pick whichever one of those two is still on the board. So the Blackhawks, with their bought and paid for blood money pick at number 3, there's a lot of people.
Don't even get me started.
There's a lot of people that have them going one of 2 ways, and his name is Bowen Byram, who's a defenseman,
right,
and or Alex Turcotte, who is a very good 2-way center.
Yes,
and then the Avs at 4 are going to pick whichever one of those 2 are available.
Right.
Now the Kings, we don't know who they're going to pick. They say that the Kings are going to start the Avalanche, no pun intended there,
right,
because they have the ability. But this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a guy named Spencer Knight.
Okay.
And he's a goalie.
Right.
Now, I am not a huge combine guy, but when people have physical traits, they're there. This guy scored in the top 10 in 8 of the 18 categories as a goalie.
That's a pretty well-rounded goalie.
That's a pretty well-rounded goalie. So we know that our goalkeeping was extremely weak last year.
He's suspect at best.
We draft a goalie, and now we don't have to go out and pay for a goalie. So now we can pay for other positions.
It's
in my mind, I know that picking a goalie at number 8 is probably a stretch, but it's a need. And I always draft need over best player.
We should. You absolutely. And
I don't care what sport.
There's two schools of thought. Obviously, all the NFL nerds are going to tell you take the best player. Some are going to tell you take what you need. Goalie. There have been numerous handful of failed minor league goalies that we were supposed to be excited about that never panned out. Thomas McCullum. There was a couple other ones that really I can't even remember their name because they just never panned out. We see Peter Mrazek gets run out of town, and then he makes, he had a pretty decent run with Carolina. A franchise goalie is something that this team could desperately use as well as defense. Now, that's pretty good on your part.
Thanks, man.
Because I honestly didn't even think goalie because, the name that I talked about it 2 weeks ago, Turcotte is a guy that I wouldn't mind seeing because he's a pretty athletic, both, two-way center, which would be nice. But, yeah, a goalie would be great if it pans out.
If it pans out. But you know what? You could go out and get Alex Turcotte, and he could be a tub of lard, too. I mean,
could be.
Is he? Probably not. You're not in the top 4 of a draft without talent.
Yeah.
But I look at what the Wings did, especially the second half of the year last year, and on that back end, you got to keep building it. The Blues are in the finals because of their rookie goalie.
Bennington. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
you can't even argue that.
You can't.
No.
But you get this goalie, and now he's on a rookie contract for the next 4 years.
Right.
And even though he got picked number 6, he's still going to make a little bit of money, but he's not going to make what some of these other top-end free agents that we could go out and get. You don't have to get top-end. Now you can go get 5 really good free agents.
Yeah, and the other end of that, too, is, and honestly, I haven't really paid attention to the NHL draft until about 4 years ago when we started sucking bad. And usually what you see is, from what I remember, that second and third, fourth round, the goalies were there. Now, that's a big gamble because if this guy's that good and he led in that many categories, you wonder, will a goalie like that hang around? But, what is the biggest need on this team right now? To me, it's defense. The scoring will go up, I think, because of, the growth of the young guys like Bertuzzi, Mantha, Larkin, Zadina. Obviously, these guys are going to be the centerpiece of this team. With the new GM, thankfully, hopefully that shifts the traditional mentality of the Red Wings is to not play the young guys. Well, I think that's finally changing. I pray that it works out that way, and these guys get a full season, and we'll see what happens. But yeah,
I'm not a hockey god. I mean, I know a lot about hockey. I could by no means question a GM's pick, but I look at certain sports in certain ways. Mm-hmm. Like I look at football, and everybody talks about how the most important thing you can have on a football team is a quarterback. Which makes sense because the guy's on the field every play. It doesn't matter if it's third and long, first and goal, whatever, the same quarterback. So he's your pivot guy, right? And in hockey, your goalie's on the ice the whole game. He's your backbone.
Right.
He really is. Everybody else is on and off, different combinations of guys, penalty killing, power play, all that stuff. This guy is out there. If you've got that guy, if you've got Tom Brady in goal, man, you contend every year.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see that, and I'll be paying attention to the draft like the total hockey nerd that I am, and hope. And then from there, it's just we have to wait till training camp, and then once they get to Traverse City, we'll see how things work out and see how things go, and we'll go from there. But to shift to the next subject, free agency's coming up, July 1st, I believe it opens up. Free agency historically was always a day that I usually tried to be off of work, and it was like a holiday. Like most people are with the NFL draft until those assholes change it to Thursday night.
Yeah.
Whatever day July 1st fell on, I was either sick or I took it off work. I'd throw on the NHL Network and I'd watch live coverage like a total fiend for 12 hours, waiting to see what happens. Because traditionally, we got free agents. Yeah. It was just a matter of who, maybe 1, 2, or that magical year in 2002 when we signed like half the league. and they all are in the Hall of Fame now. But
that $77 million budget with a $39 million budget.
It's a fun day. If you're a true passionate hockey fan, free agency day it's fun because even for the other teams, seeing who's going to go where. Like the big Tavares stuff last year, Stamkos. Waiting to see. Everyone. It was drama. It was exciting and it was fun.
Just like football, except it's hockey.
Same thing. Yeah, same thing.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So with free agency coming up, I did a little searching, and depending on what site you're looking at or what news agency or whatever, it looks like the Wings are going to be approximately $20 million. That's a nice chunk of change to have to spend on free agency because there is a lot of free agents, big free agents that are coming up. To get into a few, Erik Karlsson, as much as he ain't coming here, I've already resigned myself to that fact. He's not coming to Detroit. He's too big. He's too good. The Wings are still rebuilding. A guy like that with that level, rarely do they want to go to a team that's rebuilding. Now, granted, Detroit's got a lot of history, and there's that's still a brand. That's still a big logo to put on your sweater. But I don't think he's coming here, which sucks. But I do think that there's another guy out there that seems to be popping up more and more, and that is Jake Gardiner, a defenseman for Toronto. He's a very, very skilled two-way player, and for the defense, I think that would be huge. I think that'd be awesome. He would instantly, if they were to somehow get him, he's instantly the top defenseman in Detroit. Instantly.
Adds a lot of credibility to that.
He adds
a lot of credibility
to that, as far as the power play as well. But it's a long shot. It could happen, but I've seen his name pop up a little more and more. But free agency, you never know what's going to happen. And if there's anything like you brought up last time, last 2 weeks ago in the last episode, Yzerman knows what he's doing because he's only operated in the salary cap era. That's a huge advantage.
It is.
So
it really is. Knowing how to manipulate those numbers is huge.
Because he's never done it any other way.
Right.
He's always had a cap to work around.
Right.
And having $20 million, depending on where they add up, it depends. The cap number could go up. It should go up again. They could end up with a little bit more. So we'll see. It's interesting to see that he's got. It depends on how they're going to handle the current people that are unsigned to see where they end up. But, they've got money to go out and get legitimate players. Another player that came up in recent trade rumors, and it's come up quite a bit, it's Jacob Trouba, a defenseman from Winnipeg. He's only 25 years old. This would be, in my mind, it would be a huge... I would almost rather have Trouba than Gardiner, and here's why. He's only 25 years old. You could justify giving him a long-term contract, 4 or 5 years. As much as I hate long-term contracts in pro sports, I hate long-term contracts. He's on the power play. He's an absolute stud. He's one of those players, you always hear about players you trust on the ice. He played over 200 shorthanded minutes. That's a sure sign that he's trusted.
Yeah.
200 minutes he played, when you're shorthanded, that means he's out there for a reason. That's pretty good. So I'd be okay with that. I'd be thrilled to death.
Down for those out there in TV land, that's 100 go-to box feel shame.
Yeah, a lot of them. So the Trouba would be, to me, in my mind, a massive get, but the problem is he's a restricted free agent. So it's going to cost something. And from what I can see or what I'm guessing, again, based on a lot of stuff that I've seen or read in this past week and a half, it would probably cost a player like Anthony Mantha or Andres Athanasiou. If I could get him and I knew I had to give up one of them, there's no way in hell I'm giving up Mantha. I would trade Athanasiou for him. It would hurt. He had a breakout year last year. He's fast as hell, and he had a really good year. But Trouba just adds such help to the defense, and that's where the need is. There's going to be other scorers, but I think that Trouba would be a huge help.
Lots of times, though, when they talk about trade rumors, it's not necessarily marquee name for marquee name. It could be Trouba for 3 minor leaguers, or a player to be named later, or any of that horse shit that they do and they pull with all the little things that they're allowed to do. You don't necessarily have to give up a guy. Because let's face it, if you're going to have to give up a guy that's on your 1 or 2 line,
right,
first or second line, and you got to give that guy up, you're really not getting any better at that point. So everybody talks about who won the trade. Somebody always wins a trade.
Right.
It's never it's just as good for you as it is for me unless I give you a starting pitcher and a starting catcher and a slugger and you give me 4 infielders because you had excesses of everything. So I wouldn't be focused on maybe losing something. I'd be focused on what do we have that we could give for him.
Yeah, it's with trades. Yeah, there's times where trades you just don't know, and you may not know for a year or 6 months or whatever. You get halfway into the season, you trade Anthony Ciu and he blows his knee out, and then Trouba goes on to be in contention for best defenseman in the league. You just don't know. But given what the Red Wings need right now, which is a better, stronger defense, it's worth doing. I mean, I hesitate saying that because I would be leery of it, but if they did it, I'd be like, all right, it makes sense. Because now the defense is better, but I don't know. We'll see. And like I said, free agency it can be a circus at times. It's just a fun circus to watch.
Oh, it is. It's a great time. It's a great time because not only can you root for your team to get somebody, you can go, oh my God, he went to Boston.
Yeah.
Jeez. You got that team that you don't want to get any better, and they just keep getting better.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's 3 weeks away, so it's like counting down to Christmas.
It's not very far, man.
We'll see.
God, it's just rolling by. Everything keeps showing up.
Here's one thing that's for sure. Between June 21st and July 1st, maybe even that first couple days of free agency, a lot of stuff is going to happen for the Red Wings. And for me, I hope that it's going to be really big. Hopefully it's going to be a huge step in the right direction. So the next question I want to ask is, based on that, where this team is at, the draft coming up, we know certain targets. One thing's for sure in the draft. At pick 6, they're going to get a good player. Now, whether it's going to be a huge contributor right off the bat remains to be seen. Based on the numbers, they're going to get someone that's going to play next year. Now that Ken Holland is gone, thank God. So we won't bury him in the minors for 10 years. Thank goodness he's gone. Bye-bye, Kenny.
Yeah.
So June 21st to July 2nd, 1st, 2nd, 3rd is a huge pivotal point for the Red Wings going forward. So the expectations coming up for this next season, and it's probably something that I'll pull up for a poll question for next week to see how everyone thinks. Where do we see this team going based on what happens in that? I know a majority of people out there are going to say even Adam and John both say, they're a couple years away. I think based on what they've done and the way they finished last year, this team could make the playoffs next year. By no means am I saying they're going to make a Stanley Cup run, but they could go in and make the playoffs and perform well in the first round. God forbid, make it to the second round. But realistically, a couple years away. But we'll see.
Well, in the East, to be playoff caliber, you've got
the East is so deep.
As of right now, your top end is really deep. But your bottom end, the couple of wild cards, they're not consistent teams. Columbus hasn't been really competitive, and I'm sitting here blanking on the teams that did make it this year just because I wasn't quite prepared for this. But you got that top tier. The last few years have been Boston, Tampa.
But not to cut you off, though, but that's a great point that you just brought up. Because look at Columbus. Yeah. Jesus Christ. They roll in and just totally abuse Tampa. And Tampa comes off a historic season. And Columbus limps into the playoffs and manhandle the best team in the league.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me.
St. Louis was in last place in the league, not in their conference, in the league in January.
Yeah,
and they made the playoffs, and now they're 2 wins away from the Cup. So you want to get right down to it. You can always be playoff ready. You just got to have a guy that knows how to put the ingredients together.
And what does it always go back to? A hot goalie.
A hot goalie. The nice thing about, to me, the nice thing about hockey is you've got the upper echelon of teams that this team's going to be really good going into this season. But even your mid-range it fluctuates. Even as the season goes on, you're in second place in the conference, and in 2 weeks you're in 7th place in the conference.
Right.
It goes up and down. You just got to have the consistency. And to me, watching the Red Wings last year, the consistency, and like you said, the last minute of a period, the last minute of a game, how many points did we give up because we lost a tie or we lost in the last minute or had the win and got the tie? I mean, 10 points doesn't sound like a lot when it comes down to playoff scoring, but it kept about 6 teams out of the playoffs this year.
Ask how valuable 10 points is to St. Louis.
Absolutely. 10 points is huge.
Or Columbus.
So you shore up that back end and maybe get somebody out of the minor leaguers who's a goal scorer.
Yeah.
Because consistent. And you could be. You're right. We could be right there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's, like I said, it's going to be an exciting next 3 weeks, but in 119 days, I'll be super, super excited.
Yeah, you know why?
Because then we'll get to do this every week.
Because it'll only be 96 outside.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be down to a cool 90 degrees down here in Tampa. So what I'll do is I'll probably throw the poll up next week, give it a full week to see what everyone thinks as far as with the expectations for this team going forward next year. I'm always kind of I throw the whole thing off because I tend to say that shit with my heart and not my head. But hey, sue me. That's
hard.
That's the way that I am.
It's hard. This is hard to do. A lot of people have a problem separating fact from fiction.
Yeah.
Because you think, well, you know what? We're the Red Wings. Stamkos should want to go there. Or there's a lot of factors that we don't know about. We also tend to be significantly more forgiving to the team that we like.
Yeah. Well, that's what Toronto thought about Stamkos. They're like, oh, there's no way he's not going to come here. And then he didn't. But Tavares did. And it is what it is. But so that's all I got for this week. It's just a rough time of year, especially for Red Wings fans, for the diehard Red Wings fans. It's been rough, but it's a long summer. But
it's about to be a rough time of year because
like,
the only thing we're going to have to enjoy is baseball.
For Game of Thrones fans, this is like episode 1. Winter's coming, but it's like 8 seasons away. So, but also, again, just want to thank everybody for listening, for participating on the Twitter polls, for the comments, the feedback. As always, please keep the comments and the feedback coming. I'll throw up another poll, and we'll see what everyone thinks. And also too, before we get out of here, I do want to let everybody know that you and I do have another podcast that we're knee deep in, that we're having a lot of fun with, and that is Top 5 for Fighting. And you can find us on Twitter at Top 5 for Fighting. It's just top the number 5 for fighting. My Twitter specifically is at Putty2773. So if I'm wrong on something, or if you think I'm right, or something you want to be brought up, or something you want us to talk about, please hit us up on that. Let us know. And your Twitter is what?
GBishop72 at GBishop72.
And then, as always, please jump in, leave comments on. You can always leave comments on the Detroit Sports, the Twitter at Detroit Sports. It's so much fun. John and Adam have been a blast. Everybody associated with it, especially in the Flick app. I know John and Adam and Doc and Jock, they talk about the Flick app all the time because they're sponsors of this badass network. Flick's a lot of fun. If you're not in it, you need to get in it because everybody as a community talks about everything, or anything we want to talk about, or rip on each other, or talk about something, bitch about how bad the WWE is, or the finals, the AEW pay. I mean, we talk about everything, and it is a blast, and it is a lot of fun. So join in. Get to be part of the fun.
Also, on that Top 5 for Fighting podcast last week, we seemed to close out the show doing our favorite Your Mama jokes. And if you guys need a good chuckle, please go check that out.
If you're in the car and you just want to laugh, listen to us rattling off the best segment of Yo Mama jokes you've ever heard last week. It was a blast.
It was painful.
It was. I'm not going to lie. My face hurt a few times, but it was a good time. But that's about it.
Let's go. Adam and John, thanks for letting us do this, man.
Let's get out of here, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Go Wings.
Go Bruins. I mean, go Wings.
Yeah, that's better.